Welcome to Women and the Businesses They Own, where we celebrate the stories behind the businesses and the women who built them and the journeys that shaped them. I'm your host, Shari Hooper with Summit Wealth Partners. And today I have a special guest with me. Joshua is here as my intern, and I wanted him to be a part of this webinar experience as well. And so, just to kind of get back to that beginning here, as my guest, Kristen Nitz, I am so honored that you are on here with me, Kristen, and you are the co-founder of the Salus Collective. And the Salus Collective's mission is to provide connection and resources, education, and hope to those experiencing or supporting someone through a mental health crisis. So, Kristen, thank you so much for joining me today. And the very first question that I'd love to hear and for you to share is, can you please tell our audience a little bit more about you, both professionally and, of course, personally? We want to hear all about Kristen.
Yeah, thank you so much, Shari. I'm really excited to be here today and share about the Salus Collective. So yeah, it'll be great. A little bit about me. I've been in healthcare for about 25 years. I've worked in everything from acute care in the hospital, spent a lot of time in geriatrics. I've worked in hospice. Currently now I work for a local community health Cherry Health. So I work in primary care practice management as a practice management operations manager. So that's a little bit about me. Very passionate about leadership and serving patients, especially those who are in a vulnerable population. As far as me personally, I've been married to my high school sweetheart. Next month, it'll be 33 years. We have 4 kids. Our oldest is 30 and our youngest is 22. So they're all kind of launching and growing. And I think, to kind of work toward the Salus Collective, 3 of my 4 kids have had suicidal attempts and have been on some sort of a mental health journey. And so out of that, the Salus Collective was born. So that's a little bit about me.
Well, that explains a lot. So let me go back and so you had said that you've been in healthcare. Are you in healthcare administratively, nursing, doctor? Can you expand on that a little bit?
Sure,
So,
of course. Yeah, primarily administratively.
okay,
So primarily, I've held direct patient care roles. Like I worked in the hospital as a nurse tech, in
okay.
ICU and ER. But I also primarily have spent my time in either executive director roles, regional roles. Like I said, now I'm in a practice operations role, so I oversee 3 clinics, primary medicine clinics. So yeah,
Okay.
primarily in leadership and administration.
Well, I heard you mention Cherry Health.
Yes.
Did you say that? Well, so I actually my last guest was Stephanie McNamara. Are you familiar with Stephanie? Because she was doing some sort of a benefit, and so with what her clothing line that she sells, she was bringing over to help Cherry Health in some way with all of the clothes that as people are doing closet surgeries,
Yes.
she was going to be bringing over these clothes to you.
Yeah, to donate. Yeah, for sure. Yeah, we have
Yep.
a lot of our locations in our primary health. We really focus on whole person care, which includes
Okay.
those needs such as clothing, food, those kinds of things. So yeah, that's
Gotcha.
great.
Now, did you say you have grandkids?
I don't have any grandkids. No, I just have 4 adult kids. And I have
Or,
1 fur baby.
or maybe are any of your kids married yet?
They are not. Nope,
No.
they
Okay.
are not.
Okay.
They are just
You
out doing their adulting.
you said 22 to 30?
So yep, I have a 30-year-old, a soon to be 26-year-old, a 23-year-old, and a 22-year-old.
You
So
must have been extremely busy as a mom at one, I mean,
yes,
still even, but at
yes,
one point with all of these kids,
yes.
you have a career of over 30 years, I think you said though. So you
Mhm.
worked while you had all these little ones?
I did. So I worked opposite shifts of my husband for about
Okay.
14 years in direct patient care, as I guess like a CNA or direct care worker. I was also a charge nurse for a long time and I worked second shift.
Okay.
So he and I didn't see a lot of each other for those years. And then when our youngest was in school full time, then I was pursued more like leadership roles. And then I actually went back to college to get my degree. So he would have been like 7 or 8, I think. So I opened my first assisted living as an executive director and was in school full time and had those four kiddos all at the same time. So
Oh my goodness.
yeah, and that's probably one of the things I'm proudest of, honestly, is I graduated with a 3.93 GPA with my bachelor's, with all managing all of those things. And people will say, "How did you do that?" I'm like, one day at a time. That's
That's all
all
you
I can
could
tell you.
really do.
Yeah,
That's it, one day at a
absolutely.
time if you look too
Yep.
far down the road. I mean, I can't imagine there were a ton of extras or like a ton of occasions, or I mean, I don't know how you would have handled anything outside of just the day to day. I mean, just the
Yeah,
kids.
we did a lot of camping
Okay.
during those years. And
Whew.
actually, though, right at that kind of that time, just before that time was when my oldest had her first mental health crisis. So navigating that in addition to everything else. So
Yeah.
yeah, it was an interesting time.
Yeah, I was gonna say yeah, having to navigate that piece is it's that's scary as a mom to go through that. And certainly not to take lightly, but by the time you said there all three of your four had kind of gone down that path, did you feel a little bit more prepared on the second and third one, or is each crisis a little bit different?
Yeah, I mean, to be honest with you, each crisis is very different. My oldest, I would say she has had the most chronic, complicated, intense mental health journey. My other daughter, her sister, hers was, um, and my daughter was always very vocal about, her, where she was feeling and what she was doing, and very vocal about feeling suicidal ideation, suicidal thoughts, and all of that kind of stuff. And she herself, I mean, she had over 20 attempts, multiple inpatient hospitalizations. So, and that went on for decades. I mean, I would say she's 75% recovered, but it still is part of, who she is. It's not all of who she is, but it's part of who she is. So we always have to kind of just know that that's part of it. Her sister, though, she didn't say anything. It took me by complete surprise. And her sister was 12, I think, when she had her first attempt. Um, and that was different because of the fact that she was not really showing any other signs of, like, I would say, behavior showing like signs or symptoms. It kind of came out of nowhere. And then my oldest son, he had his attempt as an adult just 2 years ago.
Oh,
And he was living on his own, living in his own apartment. He was struggling with some life stuff. I would say his is more situational, so it's more like related to situation, feeling hopeless, feeling like I don't see a way out. And then as soon as he did it, he actually called the police for help. So
oh,
I didn't even know
okay.
what happened. He did it. He had his suicide attempt at like 10:30 in the morning, and I didn't even know anything had happened until 6 o'clock that night because he's an adult.
Yeah, right. Yeah, there's some
So,
of those things that are going on with the
yep.
adult part of it. Well, I mean, it's interesting that you've gone through this journey so many times and each one being different. Your son was living on his own. Are your daughters home even today, or do they live on their
So
own?
my oldest lives independently. She has an apartment by herself right now, that she lives independently. She does work, and she's pretty independent. I would say she's a huge success story considering what she's been through.
Yeah,
She's overcome a lot. My other daughter does still live at home. So she's still navigating, trying to launch and that sort of a thing. But a lot of that has taken more time because of some of the mental health
yeah.
things that we've had to deal with, to walk through with her, to get her to where she needs to be independent.
And then it sounds like you have another son, and he's
Yep, my
like,
youngest,
yeah,
the two youngest live together. He's pretty stable. He's no real mental health issues with him whatsoever. So I think it just shows, you can have four kids and they all can have four very different journeys and very different, medically diagnosed mental illness, but also they manifest in they differently for each of
yeah.
them. Yeah.
Tell me about his like high school. Did he have a pretty good high school years? Was he involved in certain things? Did he have a good friend group? I'm just, just for our
Yeah.
listeners, just to kind of see maybe some of these differences.
Yeah. The youngest one you're referring to?
Your
Yeah.
son, yeah, the
So,
one that,
yeah.
like you said,
So, I
that,
mean, yeah, he was in high school during COVID. So, sophomore year after that March or whatever, he didn't go back really until his senior year. I will say, he was he was dually enrolled. He was part of the Chinese immersion program at Forest Hills Northern.
Yeah.
And that was something he was very, very passionate about and very committed to. And so he had a little bit different trajectory, I guess, than just like a quote unquote normal high school
Hmm.
kid. He played some sports more in like junior high, but really then got more into that when he was in high school. And so he actually, when he graduated because of that program, he has his associates from Western in Mandarin Chinese.
Nice.
And so he ended up not going to college yet. He assures me he's still figuring that out. But yeah, so but COVID definitely changed that. I mean, going into school or high school, he was gonna do the Chinese thing and then he was going to move to China and get into IT, and that was his plan. And then everything happened with COVID and he was like completely changed his,
Yeah.
his plan.
His
So,
direction,
yep,
basically. Well,
absolutely. Yep.
hopefully he can still speak Chinese after all
He
that.
can. Yep, fluently. He still writes it. Yep, he does. Yep.
That's good news. Great. Well, let
Yeah.
me go back to your
Yeah,
history again, where you said you went and completed your master's when you had four little ones running around, your husband's working. Obviously, the heart grows fonder when you and your husband were on different
sure.
yeah, so ta-da, you said like some 30
Yeah.
years of marriage. But where did you go to school? What was your college?
So college, I graduated from Spring Arbor University.
Oh,
So
good.
I went through an adult accelerated program, and I was actually in on the track for nursing. That was going to be my goal. I actually wanted to be a hospice nurse. And then when everything happened with my oldest, I was working clinical, or I was working like doubles, like at the hospital. Plus, I was ready to do clinicals and I had a lecture class. And then I had like, and I was just like, she has to be the priority, right? Like, so I changed my major. Ended up actually leaving the hospital, found a different job that was a little bit more friendly to being more available for her.
Mm.
And so I ended up graduating with my bachelor's actually in organizational development. But I will say, given the journey I've been on, I have a strong clinical background, strong clinical acumen, but then I've also had a lot of that leadership and organizational development, which has been exactly the tools I've needed for the different roles I've had. So that's been good.
Yeah, well, there's always the path that we have is always for a reason.
Yeah,
Whether we
for
know
sure.
it or not at the time, it certainly has, I
Yep.
guess, paid off for you in the long run
Yeah,
here. But
for sure.
so when you were growing up, what did you think you wanted to be? I mean, would the younger Kristen ever imagine where you are today?
Yeah, no, I don't think so. I've kind of always been a caregiver. I had a mom who was sick from the time I was 3. So that's just kind of been part of life for me. But when I was younger, I really wanted to I first wanted to be a marine biologist. I've always been very fascinated with like the ocean, still love it. Like I go there and I kind of come back to myself. That's just kind of my place. But then after I got a little bit older, I really wanted to be a journalist. I
Oh,
wanted, my dream was like, I'm going to move to New York and be a journalist. And I thought that looked like a really fun thing to do. So yeah, this path, I mean, my circumstances, to be honest with you, definitely shaped me in this path. Just like I kind of alluded to a minute ago.
yeah.
This was definitely not the path I would have thought I would be on. My first caregiving job I basically took because I needed to have a job that was opposite shifts of my husband, and
Mhm.
healthcare is 24/7, right?
Yeah.
And I remember I worked my first caregiving shift. I was working in a dementia neighborhood, and this whole part of my heart I never knew existed. I was like, this is what I'm supposed to do. So yeah, I was in primarily in geriatrics, probably up for around 20 years. So yeah, but yeah, this
Well,
path definitely not.
yeah. Well, that's always the fun thing to think about is any of us being smaller. You go through middle school, you get to high school, they start saying, take this aptitude test, figure out
Yeah,
where's your lean, where's your niche, all these things. And sometimes it directs us, sometimes we have something else going. But, I mean, I think any one of us have started with a different dream. I mean, I love that you said journalist, New York, the big city, right? It just,
yep,
I don't know if we get that perception sometimes from TV or the movies, but I was really similar. I mean, I was speaking French. I was going to fly internationally. I mean, like all these things. I was going to be in board meetings with high executives, right? And just it was just kind of funny. I mean, everything French. I had a French car. I mean, I was all in. Like, but you know what? That did not actually go that way at all.
Yep, yep.
Always a little bit different. But I
Yes.
think you've told me a little bit about the story behind Salus Collective. But
Hmm.
if you haven't already said that special moment, I don't know if it had to do with your kids or your background, or you're a co-founder of Salus. Maybe it had something
Hmm.
to do. Tell us a little bit about your partner and maybe how that all came together.
Yeah, for sure. So as far as like forming the Solace Collective, I will say, walking my kids through all of that, the mental health system is really difficult to navigate on its own by itself. As- I've done it with kids with commercial insurance. I've done it with kids with like, healthy my child through Medicaid. So neither is easy. It's all complicated. But the bottom line is there is help for individuals who are struggling. You just don't always, it's always not easy to find or to find the right kind of help. But what I will say was consistent through my entire journey is that there was no support for me outside of my own, cognitive behavior therapy with a therapist or something like that. There was really no support. It's very isolating. There's a lot of shame around it because of the stigma, a lot of unsolicited, unhelpful advice.
Oh,
And
sure.
actually, my co-founder April, she was in a leads group with my husband, and she was kind of telling her story about her daughter. And he said, "Oh my gosh, you need to talk to my wife." I was a little further down the road than April as far as experiences with our kids. We met for breakfast one morning. That was probably, gosh, at least 5 years ago or more. And I was just kind of telling her some of the things that, that my takeaways, having been a little further down the road. And we just both kind of said, man, more families really need to know that they're not alone. And we just kind of dreamed about it that day. And then we always kind of kept coming back to it. And I think, kind of the catalyst why it started when it started. I was actually laid off last October. And so I received a really nice severance and had some time. And I was like, this is my time, right? This is when I can actually take the time to do this. And she and I have stayed in touch this whole time, but we connected and I said, we need to do this, right? Like, this is time now to do this.
Yep.
It's always been something that I have wanted to do. There's a lot of things the ways I'd like to grow it. But yeah, just to get it started was kind of the first step.
So you were saying that Salus Collective really is helping not necessarily the kiddos going through the issues. It's more of their
Mhm.
support. So mom, dad, grandparents,
Yes.
because really when you're going through that, yeah, there's nobody to help you and make sure that
Mhm.
you're okay. I'm sure there were plenty
Mhm.
of nights where you just screamed in your pillow or cried on your husband's shoulder or what have you, and really no support for that. So
Mhm.
and I didn't really ask you, how is your husband through this journey as well? I mean, you're together, these are your kids.
Yeah.
Did he go through a different journey than what you did, being, mom and dad?
Yeah, very much so. And it's interesting because a lot of people, therapists, other whatever, have said it is kind of incredible that you guys are still married. This is the kind of thing, especially one time, let alone three times. And it's expensive, right? Financially, it was a huge, like it's that kind of treatment's very expensive. His journey, and he is very open about this. He went more into, I would say, like kind of the fawn response. He didn't know what to do, or the freeze response. He didn't know what to do, so he didn't really do anything. So I will say, and again, he would be fine with me sharing this. Like, I felt really, truly alone in this. The amount of times that I had to take my oldest, especially to the ER, is countless. Countless times. The police knew her by name, when they would come. And I was always the one. I was always the one to go. I was always the one to stay with her. I was always the one to take her to outpatient therapy. It was always me. And so, yes, it felt very alone. And the responsibility of that felt very heavy because they're asking you to make really, really big decisions about medication and treatment. And they would ask me, especially in the beginning, how are you going to keep her safe at home? Well, honestly, I have no idea. And I felt completely alone, right? Um, and then as I learned more and understood how to navigate the mental health system, that became another thing because some of the things I had to fight for with her, I had to fight against with some of my other kids. So again, because it's not cookie cutter, and people that don't, they just, you don't know. So
Mm.
you just do the best you can. I made a lot of mistakes, right? I did make a lot of mistakes, but I learned a lot. And I even tell my eldest, had I known what I know now, I would have done it differently, but I only knew what I knew. So,
Well, I'm sure she can be very understanding of that too. And
yeah, I
you were
was
both
30
going
years
through,
old when this happened. Yep, for sure.
how old were you?
I was 30 when
30.
her
Yeah.
31 when she had her first suicide attempt. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
Well, and I find that to be the case so often with moms, though. I mean, we're very nurturing and loving and just, and not that dads, I think we just have different roles in the
Hmm.
home. And
Hmm.
I can understand his freezing just because I think they don't know what to do. And and men have this masculinity. And when they can't do what they do, they freeze, they don't do anything. But moms,
Yep.
we step right in, we're gonna hold on to, we're gonna hug, we're gonna drive, we're gonna stay up all night, we're gonna take you to the
Hmm.
ER. I mean, everything that's required, moms. And
Hmm.
that's truly how God has made us, and thank goodness one of us is going to be able to do it in the right time frame.
Yep.
That's
Exactly.
yeah. So what did you said stigma. I can assume that having 3 out of 4 children go through this, you got a lot of unwanted advice and a lot of people that are going like, what is she doing
Mhm.
or didn't do, right? So tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, for sure. I think we've come a long way. We still have a long way to go, but back then, I mean, we're going back almost 20 years.
Mhm.
Um, yes, it was a lot of things like she's doing this just for attention. If you prayed more or had a stronger faith, then she would be better, those kinds of things. And it wasn't just from friends, it was from family. And I think too, one of the things that was really hard for her, given her what she was experiencing, the different medications. I mean, that whole medication game was probably as bad or worse than the actual mental health uh, disease itself. Um, Attendance to school was really, really non-existent.
Mhm.
And so truancy was a big deal. And I got a lot of judgment from the school. It got escalated to the point of juvenile detention. And they were like, well, if she doesn't go, then we could incarcerate you. I mean, it got to the point where it was like, oh my goodness, like how do you accept, I can't make her go. Like I can't
Right.
physically pick her up
Yeah.
and make her go. So yeah, with that stigma, again, it just reinforced the isolation and
Mhm.
I mean, when my peers, and I lost a lot of friends through it, not because of arguments or anything like that, but I just kind of withdrew.
Yeah.
My peers and her the moms of her friends, they'd all be talking about, driver's training and prom and graduation and all those big milestone events. And I'm like, hey, we're just trying to make it through the day, one day
Mhm.
at a time.
Yeah.
Um, she didn't graduate a traditional way, even though she's incredibly intelligent. She got to go to prom because her best friend invited her to her prom at a different school. So she got to experience that. She didn't drive till she was 20 because, quite honestly, she was too much of a liability. She had too much impulse control. Like it wasn't safe for her or anybody else. So like none of that was relevant. And so again, just felt more isolating, more
Yeah.
alone. And you just feel like you're completely carrying all of it by yourself.
Well, and you really were. It
Hmm.
sounds like very much so. So now Salus Collective is born through a lot of this. So what kind of support do you offer, or how
Yeah.
do people reach out, or are there different qualifications, criteria, or how is it that you're supporting people that are going through this with their children or family members?
Yeah, for sure. So we did launch peer support groups. I've been a part of them. I've organized them, and they are very powerful. So that is something that we're taking a break in the summer, but we're going to relaunch in the fall. And we're considering even doing virtual because I think sometimes it's hard for people to either physically get out of their house to come to something, or to actually just take that step, right?
Mhm.
So we still are gonna have our in person, but we will also have virtual. We're also going to be partnering with the Ronald McDonald House that's embedded in the Pine Rest Pediatric Hospital. They want a support group for the parents that are there because their children have traveled far away, like just like Ronald McDonald's House for medical. So we're going to be having support groups there. We are partnering with Pine Rest too on some public speaking events in some schools to get the word out to social workers, teachers, parents. And then on our website, that's, I kind of alluded to it earlier, finding those resources. I mean, most of the stuff I found is by process of elimination, right? We
Mhm.
tried something and it didn't work, so I tried something else. So a lot of trial and error, which can be exhausting for everybody and expensive. And so what we're doing is we're creating community partnerships. So if it's not us, if we're not the right people to take care of people, we want to make sure we have a vetted, trusted partner. And those links are listed right on our website, so they can go right to that link. And it kind of gives them kind of a shortcut, because when you are in a crisis or you are experiencing a crisis for a long length of time, you can't really use your frontal lobe very well. You're kind of in what they call that amygdala hijack of just constantly waiting for the other shoe to drop. And you're just constantly feeling like you're vigilant about scanning for everything all the time. And so trying to slow down enough to even find resources is next to impossible. So then, that allows people to go, hey, we can even guide them a little bit. It sounds like you might benefit from connecting with this place, right? Even after suicide loss, we have a partnership with Ellie's Place, because we don't do aftercare, after suicide care, but they do a great job at that, right? And so then we would have that link on there where they would be able to go right to their website to connect.
Oh, that's great. I mean, like you said, you've been through this and you're in the healthcare. It sounds like you already had quite a few connections that you were able to reach out and
A few, yeah.
make it all happen. Yeah, I love that. All of that's been able to be a resource. So, how are you guys funded?
So right now we're donor funded. We did start as an LLC because we just wanted to get started, and that's kind of the quickest way to do it.
Yeah.
Kind of our 3 to 5 year plan is we don't charge our participants for any of our services. That was really important to both of us because everything else in mental health is so expensive. And so we wanted to make sure that that was not a barrier for access. So donation primarily is how we're funded, but our goal is in the next 3 to 5 years to raise enough funds to be able to transition to a 501(c)(3) nonprofit,
Yeah. Huh.
because we have gotten opportunities and grants sent our way, but because we don't have that distinction, we can't apply for those. So we want to be able to raise enough money to be able to fund that. And then obviously, we'll need a lawyer to help us to develop our bylaws. And I have started nonprofits for other people in the past. And
Mm.
so I do know like the legwork that goes into that, but it does require some funds too.
Yep.
So that's kind of what we're looking to raise money for right now. And then once we can, we'll have more access to funding.
Do you have a donor button on your website or
We
something?
do.
Okay,
We
good,
do.
good.
Yeah,
Will you
we
please
do.
tell all of our listeners what your website is?
Yes, it is www.thesaluscollective.com.
Good. So it is the
Yes, it is.
saluscollective.com. Perfect.
Yep.
Good. I love that. So there is, have you ever heard of 100 Women Who Care? Or it might even be called, I don't know, now that they've probably surpassed 100, maybe it's just the Grand Rapids,
Yeah.
Women Who Care. Because I just, some of the ladies I ran into them again recently at an event where we both were rising together.
Oh, yes.
And Mary Beth was there, and she said her and Sherry and Lori, they're still doing the Women Who Care. So that would be great if you're familiar with that. But they bring three, members can nominate different charities.
Oh,
Now, again, you might have to be a 501(c)(3,
mm,
so it might be on that bucket list, so to speak, for you to kind of get there. But all of the gals that show up after each of the three of you speak, and if you're the one that everybody votes on, you
Yeah,
take home the $100 that everybody brings, right? Every
sure.
member. So it's a nice way.
Yeah,
Excuse me, it's a nice way to be able to get some donor money to
yeah,
kind of continue your
for
program.
sure.
So, I mean, write that down and get that 501(c)(3
I
going.
will. Yeah, yeah. That's our goal. So, our biggest thing is we want to make sure that we are sustainable. We want to be here for a long time because I don't think this is going away. And so we really want to build those deep roots and make sure we're intentional about what we're building. Even if it is a little slower, some people are like, we needed you yesterday. I'm like, I know, but we need to make sure that we're doing it in the right way. Never will we ever turn anyone away if anyone needs us to walk with them. We also have a partnership that we're working on. If you're familiar with, it's called NAMI, the National Alliance for Mental Illness. It's they have a local chapter, and so we've connected with them, and they want to do some work with us this fall. So we definitely have some things like coming up and things that we want to, some dreams that we want to fulfill, but we also have to make sure that we're doing it in the right way. But I do think getting a 501(c)(3) is going to open a lot more doors for us.
It'll open a lot, you bet.
Yep.
Well, so is a lot of the networking, like Rising Together. I'm
Yes.
going to bring that
Yes.
back up because I believe you were the 2025. Were you in the book
I was.
Rising
Yes, I
Together?
was.
So
Yep.
describe that. I mean, just for people that might not be familiar with Rising Together, and how is it that you were chosen, and what does it mean that you're in the book?
Yeah, so I was nominated by somebody. I still don't know by who. But somebody nominated me as a local woman of influence, or a woman that was, impacting her community. And so Heather Mahoney, it's her project. She's a photographer. And so she did, some headshots, and she created a coffee table book, and now she's created a whole movement, quite frankly. But we
Yeah.
still get together a couple times a year. This last year in 2026, last month, they had those people who were elected for the book, and then some of us alumni joined to just support them and celebrate them as well. But that's been an amazing opportunity too. I've met some really great women resources. I was in the book at the time. Salus Collective hadn't started yet, but I was in it for leadership.
Mhm.
I also do some leadership speaking, like keynote speaking. And so I think it was somebody who was at one of I'm not even sure who it was, to be honest with you.
Doesn't matter.
Doesn't
It's just,
matter.
it's just
Um,
great because of the influence that you have, regardless of whether or not the Salus Collective was going at the time.
yeah.
You are well known in the community, and what better way to share your story and, this journey is to be able to connections. And so, I mean, everybody in the room knew you. I mean, that's a
Yeah.
huge start in getting this out there.
Yeah, for sure. For sure.
One thing that we hadn't really touched on that I was thinking of is, if somebody were going through this, or how would somebody know if they're going through this journey? What would be, you said it seems like with one of your daughters, you knew it and she was open about it. One of them
Mhm.
kind of surprised you and you didn't see any of those symptoms. What would somebody look for in their children?
Yeah, that's a great question. And if you go to our website, April and I both have videos on there that kind of tell more in depth about our journey with that. I will tell you for my oldest, it really looked a lot like rebellion. She was about that preteen years. I say in my video too, like I feel like I went to bed with a sweet preteen, Jonas loving, glitter and pink from toe to toe or head to toe
The
girl.
Jonas
And
Brothers, is that what you're
yeah.
referring to? Got it.
And
Okay.
then I woke up with a daughter who was defiant and kind of wore like black clothing and hoodies. And I was like, what in the world happened? And I really thought it was like an individuation type of thing, or a rebellion. And for probably the first year, I really thought we really didn't know what we were dealing with until she had her first overdose. We got her into therapy right away because she did have a lot of like self-esteem issues. And so I wanted to get that nipped right away. She was 10 when that happened. Um, and she had her first attempt when she was just before she was 12. And so, that was like, oh, we are dealing with something completely different. I remember, people talk about being disassociated, right? And so when that happened, when the school called me, um, and they said, we found her backpack and her locker, and it's filled with a bunch of different pills. And so I was like, oh my goodness, right? And so I didn't even know at that point what we were dealing with. And I tried to talk to her about it, and it was shortly after that that she actually overdosed. So, um, how to tell, back to your question, I think anytime you see a major change in your kid, if they stop going to school, they stop being interested in things, they're not sleeping, they're sleeping too much, they're eating, they're not eating, those kinds of big changes are a red flag to ask more questions. And I think what's really challenging, we put an article in our last newsletter about this, is that kids that age really don't always want to talk. You ask any like kid who's even not struggling with a mental health diagnosis or journey, and you say, how was school? Fine. Well, what does that mean? Right. And
I hate
so I
that
think,
answer.
yeah, exactly. So I think just having the ability and just pushing yourself past, like if you, and I will say back to the mom thing, like, in your gut, right? Like, something's off with your kid. Even
Mhm.
with my oldest, my oldest son, who had his attempt when, I mean, like I said, he was in his own apartment. I was actually driving to Ludington. He at the time lived with my oldest. And she called me and said, hey, he's not home from work yet. Have you heard from him? And I was like, no. And she's like, wait, okay, so his boots are here, all these signs, right? And as soon as she started saying that, even before we called the police, I knew something was wrong.
Mhm.
Um, and what's really interesting is the day before I had a conversation with him, and he had been to therapy, and he was feeling really good, and he was feeling like he was on top of the world, and he's going to do this, and he had all these epiphanies. And then the next morning is when he attempted. So it's really, really hard. And I think the foundation of that relationship is what's so important, that your kids can come to you. And I think the other thing that is so important that I learned through this is that talking about suicide does not make someone want to commit suicide. I think parents
Oh,
are
yep.
so afraid to bring it up. And that's the very thing that kid is hoping they will,
Okay.
because they want to be able to say, yes, I'm feeling this way. And as soon as they feel less alone, then you're one step closer to pulling them out of that pit.
That's really, that actually, I'm kind of processing that a little bit and thinking back, when even my daughter was younger, or I'm sure other people are thinking that. I think, we always do want to step away from saying that, because if we say it, it means
Mhm.
it might happen, or we're giving them the idea when in reality it's already on their mind and we just need to talk through
Yeah.
it with them. It's
Yeah.
kind of like in my world of estate planning, nobody wants to discuss getting an estate plan, because they always think they're going to die if they put this
Right.
together. It's
Right.
like, no, 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 you're not gonna, it's not gonna
Yeah.
make you die. It's just gonna make you
Right.
prepared for, the inevitable. But
Yes,
I
absolutely.
completely understand that. Well, if we were to pivot just a little bit away
Yeah.
from this, what would be, I always love to hear, as people are growing, even in your own workplace or in this collective, the Salus Collective or what have you, what do you what do you listen to? Has there been a TED Talk that's been
Mhm.
inspiring to you, or some
Yeah.
sort of podcast? And share with us what that might be. And was it also in mental health, or was it just in your own, excuse me, your own occupational journey?
Yeah, for sure. I've got quite a few actually.
Okay, good.
But I'm a lifelong learner. If I could get paid to go to school, I probably would. I would say, a lot of people are familiar with Brene Brown.
Yep.
She's one of my favorites. Her newest book, Strong Ground, is phenomenal. But I think her book, Braving the Wilderness, too, was a really, really important book. And actually, my oldest and I read it together on
Oh,
recommendation by her therapist. It was really important um, for us to kind of understand that from where each perspective we were coming from. But then there's also an author, her name is Brianna Wiest. I don't know if you've heard of her. She's not as well known, but she has a book that I recommend to a lot of parents, because the reality is with this journey, especially even if it's just one time, if you've seen your kid go through a suicide attempt and they've had to bring them back to life, there's definitely some PTSD around that for the parent. And when it's recurrent, or if it happens more than once, you don't think of that in the time, but you get a few years out with a little bit of space and margin, and you're like, oh man, I'm not okay. at all, right?
Yeah.
And
Mhm.
she has a book. It's called When You're Ready, This Is How You Heal. And I think
Oh,
it's just a phenomenal book. And it's especially, I think, for parents who have walked this journey with their kids. There can be a lot of, like I said before, stigma and shame, but also guilt about not doing the right thing at the right time or making decisions. Because, I mean, I'll never forget the first psychiatrist we had, the medications he put my daughter, like she was catatonic for a year. And I took her to a different one who was more pediatric. And he took a look and he said, "Who did this to her?" Right. And I didn't know any better.
oh,
I
yeah.
was just taking the recommendation of the doctor. I didn't know. So I think those are things that you don't necessarily aren't responsible for, but you do feel accountable. So,
Oh,
yeah.
definitely. I can understand that. Is there any reading or podcast that you do for fun that you just want to
Oh,
laugh?
yeah, for sure. Absolutely. Yes.
Everybody needs an
So
outlet. Do you have an outlet, Kristen?
I go to the gym. That's my biggest outlet.
Okay, good.
But no, some of my podcasts, I do have a few I listen. So there's one called Smartless. Jason Bateman, Will
Oh,
Arnett, Sean, what's his Hayes is his last name.
sure. Yep.
They're great. They're funny.
Everybody knows Sean Hayes from Will and Grace.
Yes, exactly. Just Jack, right? But Jason Bateman, he was like my crush growing up. So,
Oh, yeah. He's a
um,
poster on the wall for sure when we were growing up. I
absolutely.
know.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
that's what I listen to for fun. I also love Cy Wakeman. I don't know if you've heard of her before. She's one of my favorite leadership speakers. She's phenomenal. So I follow her podcast. I listen to a lot of them, but
How does she spell her name? You said Cy?
CY,
CY.
CY Wakeman. Yep. She does some great. If you ever watch something on YouTube of her, she's really fun to watch present too. Yeah, she's great.
Oh, great. Well,
Yeah,
I mean, I'm
love her.
interested in that one for
Yeah,
sure too, but
she's really good.
there's all this wonderful information, but we don't get to be where we are without, like you said, being lifelong learners. I hope everybody
Mhm.
can take that to heart and what that might look like different for everybody. But there's just so much to learn and grow. I mean, we get one life
Mhm.
to live. We just really want to maximize it, but
Mhm.
and with what we know, we have great conversations, we have better connections. You never know when you're going to help that next person anyway, even if it's
Absolutely.
unintentionally, right?
Yes,
So,
for sure.
yeah, so we're kind of coming to a close, and I don't know if we got through everything or not. So I want to ask you before we go to the next lightning round, is there anything more that you would like to just leave with our audience today about what you and April do there at Salus Collective and
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. I mean, I think too, April and I both have so much compassion for parents that are on this journey with their kids. Um, it's an unseen illness a lot of times for the person experiencing it, but it's really an unseen challenge for those families and for those parents who are walking that with these kids. I remember many of my friends, when I finally shared with them for the first time, they're like, "Oh my gosh, I would have had no idea. You were always so happy and you seem so like you've got everything together. I had no idea this was going on in your house." Right. And that was partly me because I didn't want to accept my story for a long time. It was just like, how is this happening to, at that time, it was two of my kids. Right. And so I think it's just, at the Salus Collective, there is no judgment. We're accepting of all. Every journey is different. April's daughter's, hers was brief. It was, she went into recovery fairly quickly. Whereas my kids have had a different journey. My son, his same thing. He got, it was more situational. He got on some medication, he got into therapy, and he got stable pretty quickly. Again, my oldest, it went over from the time she was 10 or 11 until, I mean, she had her last suicide attempt was 3 years ago. So, it was more persistent and lifelong, more chronic, if you will. So I think just knowing that whatever that journey looks like for people, it doesn't have to be a big journey like that. The little journeys matter too, because it's still scary and it's still your kid and you can still lose them, right? It just takes one day or one decision for them to make that decision. And I think as parents, knowing too, the thing that's really important is, it's an Al-Anon thing, but I've kind of taken that on, is that I didn't cause it. I can't cure it, and I can't control it. Those are the three things that I kind of go back to in those moments of chaos, right? Like, you are one human. You only have
Mm-hmm.
so much capacity and you only can do what you can do. And at the end of the day, that love, and that was the thing, you'll hear that in my video too. Like, I did not feel like love was enough. It wasn't going to be enough to save her. Um, and so that is a hard, scary place to be as a parent for sure. And so that's our passion. That's our goal, is to support those parents who are having those moments, because if no one else, if so I can keep one other person from having to walk that journey alone, that is what I want to do.
Ooh, I can feel your passion there. I mean, that's crazy. And if all of the listeners are feeling a little bit like me right now, it's like, okay, everybody just like wiggle and get all that out. That's heavy. I mean, it brings a lot of emotions, and I've never experienced that. But when we think about our kids, there could be just hardly anything worse, because
Mhm.
you're dealing with the possibility of death every day. We're being
Mhm.
fearful of that next phone call. And so do
Mhm.
do you and not to throw you under the bus, so to speak, but do you have a strong faith? Because something has kept you afloat. Something
Mhm.
has
Yeah.
kept
Yeah.
you above yourself, you know?
Yeah, I would say yes. It's evolved over the years, right? I think
Mhm.
everyone's kind of does throughout their life. But yes, I have always had that as a grounding point. And I used to get pretty angry at God. Like, why
Oh,
is
yeah.
this happening? And
Yep.
if you could fix it, why don't you? Those kinds of things. And I remember even my daughter, because we raised our kids, going to church, and she basically said, she's like, God doesn't love me. And I said, what do you mean? She said, if he loved me, he wouldn't have created me with a brain on fire. And that was probably when she was probably 12.
Oh,
And so
ugh.
those are big questions. Those are big, big thoughts and heavy, so
Yep.
yes, the
Yep.
faith has grounded me, but it also has somewhat complicated. Some of the faith leaders in our lives were probably the ones who rejected us the most. So it's just been very complicated.
I
um,
have heard that several
yeah.
times, and that's very
So
unfortunate. But
yeah.
but
Yep.
the relationship is personal with you and God, and so
Yes. Yep.
humans let us down all the
Yes,
time.
absolutely.
You know.
Yes. Yep.
Well, so lightening it up a little bit, we're going through the
Yeah.
lightning round here. I love what you and April are doing. It's not in anything that I've experienced, like I said, but it's certainly something that a lot of people are going through, and I know you'll be able to help them. So a lot of people hopefully will reach out to your website and be able to get more information.
Yeah.
But before we continue to the fun questions here, if you're enjoying today's conversation, for our listeners, please take a moment to subscribe, to follow, and to share this podcast. Even in particular, I think this one can really hit home in what you and April have created, and hopefully creating solutions for people as well. But obviously, the support of everybody out there listening and sharing and liking helps us continue to really highlight the stories of these remarkable women. And I sure do appreciate that. So, with that, we're going to have Joshua help out with a lightning round. So, this is meant, I always say it's like turning on a timer. No pressure. You don't have to answer fast. There's no game show, no prize. It's fun.
Yes.
All right. Question number one is what's your favorite drink?
Ooh, my favorite drink. So, honestly, alcoholic or non-alcoholic, I don't know if it matters. I am a huge bourbon girl.
Woo!
My husband and I are what we call bourbon hunters. So we go all over the country and find bourbon, and locally and around the country. We do the Bourbon Trail every year. So
Oh,
that would
great.
be that would be my thing. Non-alcoholic would be Fresca.
Fresca. I love that. I
Yeah.
love, so you've been to Kentucky, is what you're saying, the
Yes.
Bourbon Trail, right?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah,
Yes.
got it.
Yes.
What about
Yep.
One Bourbon, that downtown
Yes.
restaurant?
Yep. It's a great restaurant. Yeah. They
A
have a
good
great
one. All
selection.
right.
Yeah.
Sweet. So sunrise or sunset?
Oh, that's a good question. I'm an early riser, and if it's not raining, I usually tend to go out for a walk before I go to the gym. So I'm going to say sunrise. I love them both, but I love the feeling of a brand new day. There's nothing like it.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Agreed.
I'm curious on this one. Beach vacation or mountain getaway?
Beach vacation all day long.
Let's go. Come on,
Give
the
me a book,
water
a beach, and a bourbon, and I'll be happy.
Yeah. Yeah, they go together.
in the morning at sunrise.
Yes, that's right.
Sunrise at the beach with a bourbon. I don't know. Might be a little early for bourbon, but maybe
I don't know.
not.
So what's one small thing that brings you joy every day?
Ooh, one thing that brings me joy every day. There's so many things. I think just yeah, that's a good question. There is so many things. I think, I have a thing in my bathroom that says today's a new day, make it a good one, right? And I think just being given that day every day and to make the best of it that you can every single day, no matter if you have hard things. I would say my dog though gives me joy. Like she's the best. I adore her.
What kind of dog do you have?
She's called a Stabahoon, which most people are like, a what? Right. And so she's in the Border Collie family. She's not a Border Collie. A lot of people think she is, but she's not.
Okay.
Yeah, but she's been with us since a puppy and we're buddies. Like we hike together, we walk together, she boats with us. Yeah.
That's good. What's her name?
Her name is Gracie May.
Gracie May. Got it.
Yeah.
Gracie May.
Yeah.
What else do you have for us, Joshua?
If you could have dinner with anyone, alive or dead, it doesn't matter. Who would it be?
It would be my mom. I lost my mom at 20 years old and I would
Oh,
do anything to have dinner with her.
aw.
Absolutely. Yep,
Yeah.
for sure.
Two more. What's one word that you hope people would use to describe you?
Um, hmm. I would say accepting. Just
Treating everybody. Yeah.
yeah, just whoever you are, wherever you are in life, doesn't matter to me any of the things that we can list through, right? Just accepting that you would feel warmth and feel welcomed.
That's a good one.
Yeah. Then the last one, what's something that's still on your bucket list?
Ooh, I got so many things on my bucket list. I love to travel. So I was a travel agent actually before I got into healthcare. But I want to go to Croatia. I want to go to Greece, the whole Mediterranean, but I also really want to skydive.
Ooh.
Sheesh.
Yeah.
I too would love to see Croatia. I've looked up pictures because I had a friend that went and I was like, who goes to Croatia? And then I
Yep,
looked up those,
everybody says that. I'm like, look it up and then we'll
you
talk.
gotta see the pictures.
Yeah. Yeah.
Skydiving is not for me. I'm gonna leave that all to you.
Yeah, I'm a little bit of an adrenaline junkie, but
I
yeah,
guess.
I would
I
love to see.
guess. Oh my
Yeah.
I'd love
gosh.
to skydive.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I've done free climbing in Denver. Like I've done crazy, like when I was younger, before
Yeah.
anybody really counted on me. But
Yeah.
yeah,
That's the thing is like
yeah,
once you become a mom, some of those things just either take a back seat or you think I've got too many people that need me right now.
that's
I
right.
can't risk that.
But I would still love to do that. I think that'd be fun.
Well, Kristen, as I listened to your story today, there has been a lot of things that resonated with me. And so it's really tough to kind of think of the one thing. But what really gave me goosebumps, I think, more than anything, is right at the end of our conversation when you just talked about it's even hard to bring up, but to see your child or to think that this may have been their last day, your last day with them. And then will that happen again? You've had to go through this so many times, but to be able to just be so near the closeness of losing your child and what that must be for parents and not processing it right away or coming up later. I mean, I am so thrilled that your story has a happy ending in regard or despite, I guess, the fact that you've gone through this so many times and with many of your children, they're still here with you today. All of them.
Mhm.
All
Yeah.
of them. So that one really hit home for me. But anyway, it kind of makes me just like you can't think about that as a mom. So
Mhm.
you are a tough person inside and out. Just like to be able to go through all of that and to be able to take what could make you really like pull in and tough in a negative way you've been able to use for good and you're
Mhm.
just putting this into this charity that can now help many others and there's no better way to help somebody than to have experienced it yourself and really be able to share your own story and like you said to be accepting of everybody going forward. So,
Yep, absolutely. Yeah.
well, Kristen, thank you for sharing your story and your heart and the important work of the Salus Collective. Thank you to our listeners for joining us on another episode of Women in the Businesses They Own. And today you shared your story and you shared it beautifully. And to all of our listeners, please remember she came, she spoke, and she inspired. We'll see you next time.